Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh. We try and spend some time on this program making sure that the audience is aware there are political prisoners around the world who are American. One of them is Ruben Vardanyan. He's being held in, I believe, Azerbaijan. His son, David, joins us along with Jared Genser, who is an internationally known human rights lawyer. Welcome. David, can you tell us what's going on with your dad? Not a lot of Americans are clued in on the Azerbaijani Armenian dispute.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hewitt, for the opportunity to speak about an often forgotten conflict, considering what is happening in the world. My father, Ruben Vardanyan, has been illegally arrested in Azerbaijan for over 550 days. Uh, he is unfortunately one of 23 Armenian prisoners currently illegally detained by Baku, some of whom are political prisoners, some of whom are prisoners of war who haven't been released by Baku since the 2020 war. The reason that they're arrested basically is simple because they're Armenians who stood up for the rights of ethnic residents of Nagorno-Karabakh to live and thrive in their homeland, in their ancestral homeland that was there for thousands of years, and is actually one of the cradles of Christian heritage, with monasteries dating back to the 10th and 9th century.
I'm in Southern California. I know lots of Armenian Americans, and I know about the tradition in Armenia. And I followed the war. And Jared Genser, you're known as the extractor. You get people out. Tell us how this war managed to take in bystanders like Reuben, David's dad, and just Christians doing their thing along the border.
Look, I mean, President Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan has a long history of not just persecuting others, but persecuting his own people. In October of 2023, he launched an ethnic cleansing campaign that pushed the 120,000 ethnic Armenian Christian population, the entire population of Nagorno-Karabakh, a region that historically had been Armenian, but was under now Azerbaijani control, across the border into Armenia. This was a well-planned and executed ethnic cleansing campaign. It also included dismantling the government of Nagorno-Karabakh, which David's father, Ruben Vardanyan, had been a part briefly as a state councilor. And he also, to ensure that few people could speak out for this Armenian Christian population, grabbed as many of the former leaders of Nagorno-Karabakh as he could, which included Ruben Vardanyan, but also 3 former presidents, a former foreign minister, a former president of the National Assembly, all Armenian Christian leaders of Nagorno-Karabakh who were all grabbed as part of this campaign. And they've been detained really ever since then. It's obviously a very, very difficult situation and a challenging one. President Trump, when he ran for president in October of 2024, called what happened in Nagorno-Karabakh an ethnic cleansing, something the Biden administration wasn't even willing to do, and said he would speak up for persecuted Christians. And I'm pleased to report that the Trump administration is doing a lot already to engage on the situation and to try to get a peace deal in place between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which has been a longstanding and historic dispute. But President Trump has made very, very clear that the release of the prisoners, of the Armenian Christian prisoners, has to happen, before or at the time of a peace agreement.
David, can you tell me about the conditions of confinement that your father is in? Are you able to talk to him? Are you able to see him? Is he being isolated, or is he treated relatively well for a political prisoner?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think it's really important for the audience to understand the nature of the situation we're dealing with. So, according to many NGOs, including Freedom House, Azerbaijan is ranked as one of the least free countries in the world, less free than Iran, than Venezuela, and many other authoritarian regimes. So the issue that we've had that since Dad's arrest in September 2023, none of the family have been able to see him in person. The only thing that we've had is some semi-regular phone calls that are obviously monitored from the prison, which we're still grateful for, but nonetheless, Dad cannot speak freely, and it's only for a couple of minutes. And then finally, what we did have is the International Red Cross, which visited the prisoners once every couple of months. But we just learned very tragically that at the beginning of this year, Azerbaijan announced the closure of many international NGOs, including the Red Cross, in the country, meaning that it's even more isolated. Just to highlight how much of a isolation Dad is in, Jared, our lawyer, who has been on the team since the end of 2024, hasn't been able to not only visit Dad, but even speak to him or see any of the case materials. So this case is done in a complete isolation against all international norms and laws, and we're incredibly concerned because just one instance before I stop is Dad launched two hunger strikes. The first one in protest, both in protest against the sham trials that are happening. The first one in April 2024, we lost contact with him for almost a month, and we only then found out that in punishment for his hunger strike, he was placed in an isolation cell, deprived of drinking water, not allowed to sleep, and all this was done whilst in incommunicado detention. So the true conditions of his stay are unknown to us. As we understand, thank God, he's okay at the moment, despite going on a second hunger strike. However, the unpredictability and the lack of transparency deeply worries us.
Mr. Genser, you've dealt with this a lot. You may have dealt with my old law partner, Ambassador O'Brien, when he was the special envoy for hostage affairs, because you've dealt with this a lot. And Robert and I are very good friends. He's abroad right now. I would have called him and asked him to join us for this because it's very difficult to get. It's a delicate business getting hostages out, right? It's a very delicate business. If you put too much pressure on, you push them back deeper into the prison network. If you don't say anything, people forget about them. So how are you approaching this with Team Trump? Who's working on it for you? Who's negotiating for Ruben? Who's negotiating for the other Armenian Christians?
Yes, I mean, thankfully, this is being dealt with at the highest levels. Steve Witkoff, the close friend of the president, who's been his envoy in many matters, actually visited President Aliyev in Baku literally only a few weeks ago to talk about a range of different issues in the bilateral relationship, but also to call for the release of the Armenian Christian prisoners. And then the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, has been personally engaged, as has his team at the National Security Council. And he had a call and actually tweeted out about the call with the National Security Advisor of Azerbaijan, and specifically and explicitly said, President Trump would like to see a peace deal happen, and the prisoners must be released as part of this overall process. So we couldn't have really any higher level engagement. I think that ultimately what has to happen, as it happens with any dictator when they release prisoners, they never do it because they want to. They do it because they have to, and when it's their least worst choice among a lot of bad options. And so really now my best understanding is that the Trump administration is looking at sending some very clear signals through policy actions that will make clear to President Aliyev of Azerbaijan that this has to happen, and this has to happen quite quickly. I think President Trump is in a position to make it happen more than anybody else in the world, and we're very pleased for the highest of high-level engagement and for the commitment of this administration to free persecuted Christians around the world.
You push one of the buttons that makes me do a disclosure. Mike Waltz is a very good friend, and my son works for him at the NSC, so I always have to say that when it comes up on the air. They did not arrange this interview. This interview was not arranged by them. I just want to say that. I'm glad to hear NSA Waltz is involved. Let me stay with you for one more question, Jared, before finishing up with David. Tell me about President Aliyev. Why would he do this? What is the motive? Is there oil and gas? What is the upside of ethnic cleansing? There is no upside of ethnic cleansing.
Yeah, I mean, he has his own historical worldview that he's been, going on about for many years. He's obviously the son of a former dictator of the country as well, so it's been a family business for a very, very long time. And he has long wanted to remove the Armenian Christian population that has historical ties to land that he considers to be Azeri and is always considered to be Azeri, despite the very long history of Armenian Christian churches and church practice in the region. So I think that's really the primary motivation is to, what he would say is, uniting the country. But it's also worth noting that he is a dictator and a thug. He already has as well 300 political prisoners of his own population who are imprisoned there. He stole the last election. It was neither free nor fair. There was no independent or free media in Azerbaijan as well. And so, this is just one of a series of serious crimes that have been committed by President Aliyev against not only his own population, but the people of Nagorno-Karabakh.
And let me close with this. David, how do people help out the cause? Because in Southern California, as you know, there's a large Armenian American population, most of which are Christian, but they're all across the United States. And there are people who rally to the cause of political prisoners. So how do people help you?
No, I think Jared touched on a very important point that we have really high hopes for the new administration, which has taken a very different stance to this false sense of duality that was taken by the previous administration. And I think, as we approach the 110th anniversary of the Armenian genocide, we Armenians have kind of been used to being persecuted for our faith, for being a minority Christian group around the world, and it's really been a lot down to the international community, and a lot has been done, especially by the U.S., to save Armenians. Actually, my great grandfather was saved by a U.S. orphanage in Armenia during the genocide. So it's nothing new that Christians around the world come to the rescue of Armenians. And I think this administration, if given the right kind of impetus and the right stimulus to do and the right set of things to say, I'm sure they can achieve the desired results of releasing all the political prisoners unjustly held in Azerbaijan.
David Vardanyan, I hope your father, Ruben, is reunited with you soon. And Jared Genser, honored to meet you. Great to talk to you. I appreciate the work you do for political prisoners around the world. And I make sure we stay updated. Once I put one of these stories out there, people always want to know how they develop. Please keep me posted. And I hope it turns out to be a great result and very, very soon. David and Jared, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for your time.